All right. Can everyone hear me all right and see my screen?
Yep, you're loud and clear.
Excellent. Hey, Blake, thanks for that intro, and thanks, Peter and Patrick, for having us and both be able to talk about the work that Humanitarian Openstreetmap does, but also about the OpenAerialMap project, which we're super excited to be one of many partners that are a part of this project. And so what I'm going to do is, like, for the next 10-15 minutes, do a quick overview of just what the tools and what the community looks like, as well as just kind of orient you around what are the different ways that anyone can essentially access OpenAerial imagery, contribute to the development of the project, or just understand more how your operations or any of the work you do can either contribute or use the open commons of imagery that OpenAerialMap is working on. And OpenAerialMap is really a kind of it's been around for a while, for a number of years, but over the last within the last year, with the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team leading out with funds from the Humanitarian Innovation Fund, along with Development Seed, Azavia, and Stamen, essentially built and launched the new version of OpenAerialMap this last year, and so everything you're going to see is all of the work that we've done over the last year and a half, and then I hopefully I'll do a little demo and give a sneak peek of some of the new stuff that we're working on this fall, and be able to share kind of what's coming up. So I'm going to talk about what is OEM, why does it matter, and then get into showing off some real work, and I'll be able to you'll see URLs and slides and links, and be able to follow along on your end if you want to. So we all know, and Blake kind of outlined this a little bit. We have satellite imagery, and we're going from big sats to small sats, and we're getting more and more imagery, easier to purchase, and a lot more frequency to get imagery. And I love this imagery. This is in Jalalabad and over Afghanistan, and a political rally a couple of years ago for the now President Ghani, and it just gives you a sense of, okay, we can get events, and the frequency is increasing. The same thing with being able to, everyone on the call or has at least some type of experience or interest in being able to not only collect imagery for like disaster response, but also for building projects or other infrastructure where I can quickly deploy and watch and monitor the progress of something happening on the ground. And the same thing with the work that we do in Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team is being able to deploy a UAV and to quickly gather information in the wake of a single event, and so this is some drone imagery over Tacloban, and here's the imagery that I was showing that no one saw. Some imagery over at the stadium in Afghanistan, looking at building projects and being able to monitor progress. This is some imagery over some disaster response imagery. This is another just shot of imagery just a few months ago in Ecuador, and so you see the damage of individual buildings, but the real thing is, so imagery, we all know, and there's why there's interest in OpenAerialMap is that it's hard to store, it's hard to publish, and it's also hard to find imagery that I can use, or imagery that I can that has been shared, and so this is one thing that OpenAerialMap is looking to solve are these three problems. And so just so in terms of like a pipeline, if you know imagery processing and collecting imagery, you collect a whole lot of image, and you typically mosaic them in just a visual image. OpenAerialMap is really just at the far right of the spectrum of being able to take and consume orthogeotiffs and make it easily accessible and usable. And so this is the problem. This is really the area that we're focused on, is the publishing and sharing and finding, and we're not necessarily tackling the mosaicing and the collection part. And but I'll mention a couple other projects like OpenDroneMap, which is dealing and working a lot with this. So if you go to OpenAerialMap.org right now, you'll see this landing page where you can jump right into exploring, but you also get a sense of the number of images, the different types of sensors, and the number of providers that are within this open collection of imagery. And really, like OpenAerialMap is essentially, it's a distributed commons of openly licensed imagery. And so what it is it's not only like a single platform, but it's also a set of tools that can be deployed and connected in a distributed way to be able to share your imagery that you control, that you own, but you connect it to the commons. And so really, OpenAerialMap it's a browser. It's a map browser that you can use to search and find imagery. It's all API driven, and so you have a full API to access the data, access metadata about the imagery, and be able to download it. And then it's a set of contribution tools, so upload and tiling mechanisms to be able to contribute and share and publish that imagery. So real quick, so I'll walk through each of these three pieces and give you a sense of what it is, and then you can test it out yourself. So the first thing is the browser, and so when you land on the page, you'll see a full map view with some search filter functionality here in the top left, and you have a typical map view, but this is a grid-based view, and so which we've kind of abstracted as a way to visualize the amount of imagery that's in the system right now. And so you can browse someplace like the Philippines and be able to click on an individual square and see, okay, what is the imagery that is available in this location? You can click on an individual image and you get some brief metadata about who's providing it, what is the date of collection, the resolution, and be able to download that image. And if it has some other kind of a tile, a web map service, you'd be able to access that as well. One thing you can do is pull this is like get a preview of not only the image, but what you can do is pull this directly into OpenStreetMap, and this is the ID editor, and be able to do what Blake mentioned earlier as that digitization. And so this is where OpenAerialMap and openly licensed imagery really comes into play in being able to provide the critical imagery we need in a response. Over Ecuador, there is a recent example of where a number of providers came together to share and distribute their imagery for the earthquake response back in the spring, in April, I want to say. The Planet Labs, a UAV, a volunteer UAV group based in Ecuador, Digital Globe as well came together to share a whole bunch of imagery. And so when you go to OpenAerialMap now, you'll see all this imagery that's still available for use. You can click on an image, be able to get the tiles and pull it directly into a GIS or into OpenStreetMap. Then next is the API. So the browser is built on an API, and so if you're curious about building web services or building a separate application, if you want a custom application that's not necessarily through OpenAerialMap.org, you could consume the API and be able to build on top of it. And essentially, it's a metadata API that essentially this looks like this. It gives all the detailed information about where the imagery is stored and other information about contact information and the provider. Then the last piece is the uploader, which essentially is a simple web form that allows you to submit the imagery that you have available, and that could be one of the new features we'll be launching this week is Dropbox Integration, and so being able to upload a whole bunch of geotiffs to a Dropbox folder, and then be able to submit that to OpenAerialMap. And what OpenAerialMap does is that it will then consume that imagery and store it onto an Amazon S3 bucket that is behind the hot imagery that we store, and so that's the one of the many contribution methods. Another method is, which I'll get into a little bit, is creating your own S3 bucket and contributing as a full imagery partner. A recent example of another example of imagery that's been contributed has been some imagery that's collected to the Asia Foundation over Ulaanbaatar, and so there was a project that did a whole bunch of building to digitalization in Ulaanbaatar. They contributed this last year. And then, so really, OpenAerialMap is built on a number of principles, but the key principles, one, Blake highlighted some of these that, Openstreetmap is an important consumer of open imagery. It's an open license and needs openly licensed imagery to be able to create derivative data from. One of the key principles is open imagery. Imagery should be accessible both in the raw format, so let me download GeoTIFF files, as well as a derivative format, so quick access. So if I don't want to download a heavy, 500 megabyte GeoTIFF, but I want to just access some a web service in QGIS or online, I should be able to do that. And so a derivative format is another principle. And then and then the open imagery is important for coordination and access. So licensing is key, and so getting that where OpenAerialMap CC by, and and so it's important for not only making imagery available, but the allowing for a number of different uses and building off of that is key. And so we touched on this. Why does open imagery matter? It's one, it matters for the work that HOT does, and being able to have openly licensed imagery, but also the derivative data from it through Openstreetmap. But also, there's a lot of unknown, like what can be done with open access. We see, if you follow some of the work that Amazon, the open data team at AWS has done, has pushed how making imagery and data available is one step to innovation and being able to think through what are the new ways that we can use imagery, and so this is something that we believe in and want to see.